Good afternoon, Rotarians. Welcome to the Rotary. Thanks. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison on a snowy Wednesday. It's nice to see so many people come out. Appreciate that. My name is Paul Huffman. I'm the club president, and thank you for joining us today. Today's meeting is sponsored by Tom Pop on behalf of the playing field. So, Tom, I saw you there. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Thank you for supporting our luncheon today. Appreciate that. And then we're going to open up our meeting like we do by reciting the four-way test together of what we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial for all concerned? Thank you. And please remain standing for our opening patriotic song. Dave Ettinger will lead us in singing our national anthem with Casey Elkers on the keyboard. Dave?
Yeah, you're welcome. I will do just in case. Okay. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, great, thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Casey. Appreciate that. And now our guests are going to be introduced by Rick Kiley. Rick? Thank you, Rick. Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you. Thank you, President Paul. Good afternoon, Rotarians. So happy it's Wednesday. Guests, would you please stand and remain standing so we can recognize you all at once with a warm Rotary welcome. Nancy Young has two guests today, Barbara Bervin and Beth Rocco. Peng Her is a guest of Tom Pop. Gary Mecklenburg is a guest of Joyce Bromley. Peter Rogers is a guest of Casey Elkers. G. Thao is a guest of Program Committee. Bruce Lindsay is a guest of Ann Lindsay. Katie Johnson is a guest of Ann Nuyar Morrison. Joel Rivlin is a guest of Mark Clear. Patty Wilson is a guest of Mike Wilson. Mario Garcia Sierra is a guest of Chris Ivanoff. And we have two visiting Rotarians. First of all, our Assistant Governor and Foundation Chair of District 6250, Aaron Lucan, in the corner, and Margaret Pearson from Lebanon, Illinois. Rotarians, please give our guests a warm welcome.
Welcome to all of our guests, and thank you, Rick. All right, for today's number, I'd like to highlight is the number 14 for the week. That's the number of members who are serving on this year's Community Grants Committee, and Jen Savino is serving as chair this year. These volunteers have been out interviewing representatives from organizations requesting funding from our Madison Rotary Foundation, and they met in an all-day session yesterday. Committee members presented summary reports on their visits, and they'll be making recommendations for funding to our club board and to the foundation trustees in March. Let's give them a round of applause for their dedicated service and helping us out. All right. And Doug Dittman serves as president of our Madison Rotary Foundation. this year and during its 90th anniversary, and Doug is going to come up and provide news about a new fund. Doug?
Thank you, President Paul. As Paul mentioned, I serve as president of our Madison Rotary Foundation this year. Foundation leaders have been providing monthly highlights about our foundation as we celebrate our 90th year. And today's report will focus on our foundation's newest endowment fund. The Community Grants Endowment Fund was created last year, and our foundation trustees want to make it a focus during this 90th year. Donations we received during our annual fund drive that just ended last week provide funding for the Community Grants program. In addition, this new fund will specifically benefit our Community Grants program with only the interest on the fund being used each year to enhance the funding. The person who should really be up here making the announcement about this new fund is Steve McStackey. But he's in warmer climates as we speak. Smart guy. So I promised to deliver the news of this significant new fund. I've served personally on this Community Grants Committee for 14 years and have chaired it for several years. So I know what a great program we have. Let me share just a little background though about Steve. He's been a member of our club for 4 decades. The Rotary hook for Steve was our Community Grants program. Shortly after joining, he served 6 years on the Community Grants Committee with 2 as the chair. He went on to serve as the Fund Drive chair, then served on our Foundation Board of Trustees, then as club president, and he served as chair of our Foundation Investment Committee, has served as our Foundation Investment Committee chair for the past 28 years. Especially in his role as an investment committee chair, he has kept an eye on the funding of our Community Grants program. Steve is a CPA, so he loves looking at numbers. He did an analysis several years ago and noted that our Community Grants funding wasn't seeing much of an increase year to year, but yet our scholarship program was having major increases. So, after Steve did a little research, he created a proposal, presented it to Foundation trustees to create this new fund, and the trustees unanimously approved it. This fund will operate similarly to the Synergy Fund for scholarships. The Community Grants Endowment Fund seeks to bring similar encouragement, opportunity, and recognition to bolster support of our Community Grants program. This fund is patterned after the Synergy Fund in that members can contribute to this fund in any amount. The office will keep track of the contributions. When contributions reach $50,000, a member has the option to create a named fund to our Community Grants program. Birthday gifts are also helping to build the corpus of this new fund. The roundup portion of your birthday gift will continue to go to the Synergy Fund. Last July, we asked past and current Community Grants Committee members if they'd like to make an initial gift to this fund. We received gifts totaling $8,000. Today, current and incoming club and foundation leaders pooled their funds to make pledges and contributions totaling $6,000 in honor of Steve McStackey to add to this fund. At your table today is a pledge card to request that you consider joining club and foundation leaders and current and former members of the Community Grants Committee in being an inaugural donor to this fund. There are also some extra pledge cards at the back table if you run out at the tables, or you can contact the Rotary office. Our foundation trustees understand you are already asked to support both the fund drive and the Rotary International Foundation in our annual campaigns. So in keeping with the spirit of this fund, while large contributions would be certainly gratefully appreciated, what we seek is a wide level of initial support that begins to build this fund going forward. I'll close by noting that if you have found the Madison Rotary Foundation to be a good steward in advancing Rotary's principles, you now know that it can serve as a way for you to establish a named fund for either scholarships or community grants if your philanthropic goals are so inclined. Thank you for your support of the efforts of our Madison Rotary Foundation as we continue to celebrate our 90th anniversary year.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate your leadership, and thanks to Steve for all of his leadership for all those years. It's many of our Rotarians have dedicated a lot of years to help to take care of and manage our foundation very well, and we're very proud of that. So thank you for that. All right, we've got a Rotary Information Subcommittee that provides occasional Rotary historical facts and reports. Today we're going to hear from Ed Futa, who joined our club last year. What many of you may not realize is that Ed was formerly the General Secretary and Chief Operating Officer for Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation from 1999 to 2011. In this position, he managed 33,000 Rotary clubs in 200 countries and geographic regions. He continues to have many connections from serving in those roles, and Ed was recently at the World Health Organization meeting in Geneva, Switzerland. And he's going to come up and provide us with the latest news about the Polio Plus program as a result of the Rotary International's coordinating efforts with the World Health Organization. We are proud to have Ed as a member of our club, and welcome to our podium, Ed. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm delighted to give you a brief. I love these speaker notes here. They say, attention speakers, speak directly into the microphone. So I'm good at following this advice here. But this will be the shortest or briefest briefing that you've had on Rotary information. As the President mentioned, I attended the WHO, World Health Organization, meeting in Geneva, Switzerland in October, sponsored by World Health Organization and Rotary International, to refocus our strategy on our polio eradication efforts within polio. As you know, that's our primary concern. Rather than give you all kinds of statistics and facts, which I have them all, and you're saved from all of this yellow highlighting by referring to your latest Rotarian magazine, Rotary magazine, pages 60 and 61 give an outstanding update on our meeting in Geneva with Dr. Tedros, who is the director of World Health Organization and a tremendous supporter of Rotary International and our efforts. I'd like to, however, just as an aside, please note in the write-up, it says that some of the funding is critically important to get our polio campaign back on track. As you know, we left the general immunization of polio for helping to support through our laboratories, which is important for detecting polio, helping support the COVID activities worldwide. So now we're sort of redirecting our labs to refocus again on polio. But in cranking up our polio immunization campaigns, which as some of you know, might include some 12 million youngsters immunized in a single weekend in a country. How many people know which countries are still polio endemic? Rob, I think you know. Pakistan mainly and Afghanistan still have wild polio virus circulating around there. Now, you're wondering what the Rotarian volunteers are doing. Well, they're not always active in actually giving the polio drops. They're active in advocacy. Why do I say this? Because if you read here that some of the money needs to go to further empowering females and women in these countries to be trained and assist us in polio eradication. Without the women, polio will not be eradicated in these countries. The eradication of polio, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Rotarians, is not a scientific or medical anomaly. It can happen tomorrow. It is political, entirely political, and entirely power politics. Therefore, we have to, on Rotary's behalf, we have to advocate or push for, especially in Afghanistan, which last week promulgated a law that forbids females from assisting NGOs in achieving their goals. Well, in a strictly Islamic country, if the females aren't allowed to go into the households and immunize the children and the female children, it won't happen. So we'll never get that segment of the population immunized. Therefore, those smaller, quote, smaller things are tremendously important in our eradication efforts. So please don't think that all we're doing is distributing drops. We are advocating on fundamentally, basically important issues of not only equality, but of saving lives. So that's what we're doing, and we're actively promoting that. Those of you that passed the Rotary literacy campaigns, please read this article, because it is really essential. And anybody needs some more of the data, statistics, I have that for you, and I'll try and share it with our monthly newsletter so that you have it. But before I leave the stage, you know, as I said, I had just a few minutes, but before I leave the stage, I just wanted to comment that as a new Rotarian to this club is a singing club. Not every club in Rotary is a singing club, but this club is. And it works for the club. It works for the club. So I'm not advocating we give it up by all means. But as we are singing, who remembers what song we sang this morning? Please. What was it? The Star-Spangled Banner. Sometimes when you sing the songs, they're automatic and they're just rote and you just go over it. But you know, in the Star-Spangled Banner, it struck me. The last two phrases of the first verse of the Star-Spangled Banner, land of the free and home of the brave. It's kind of reversed, because in my opinion, if we were not the home of the brave, we would not be the land of the free. So think about that when we sing this by rote and automated singing. If we really are not the land of the brave, we would never be the home of the free. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed, for all you've done for Rotary and continue to do, and we're so proud to have you as a member of our club. Thank you for choosing to be here with us. Thank you. All right, we've got birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complements Rotary's mission. We also encourage members to make a gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation that represents their age, rounded up to 100, for the Synergy Scholarship Fund. All right, on January 22nd, Al Bryan celebrate his birthday. January 23rd, Tara Grays. January 24th, Mary Helen Becker. January 24th, Tom Walker. January 25th, past President Angela Bartel. January 25th, Kendall Kolb. January 26, Cheryl Cato. January 26, Joe McNeil, who was our Madison Rotary Foundation treasurer. January 26, Chris Rich. January 26, Trey Sprinkman. January 27th, Jim Homrey. January 27th, Rick Kiley. January 27th, past President Susan Schmitz, who shares, I joined Rotary in 1989, but since 2009, I've been able to share my birthday message with two of my Rotary friends, Jim Homrey, who joined in 1982, and Rick Kiley, who joined in 2009. The three of us have the same birthday as Mozart, and we are proud of it. Also, the three of us are 5 years apart, with Rick being the youngest. Mozart, however, would be 267 years old and would be proud that we still sing at our meetings. I am thankful every day for being part of this amazing club that has brought so many wonderful friends my way. And Susan's been an incredible recruiter for the club too. I think almost 25 some plus members over the years. So I'm sure many of you in the room were hoping to be sponsored by Susan. And thank you for that. Appreciate that. January 28th, Roberta Gassman. And January 28th, Rich Lynch. So thanks to our celebrants for their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. And please join me in wishing them a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Jane, I want it noted that it says 12:33 members in the news, and it is 12:30, just turned 12:34. So I'm close, Jane. I'm trying. I wanted to let members know that Jason Barron's father, Bruce Barron, passed away on January 20th in East Troy, Wisconsin. We extend our condolences to Jason and to his family. We've got one member in the news item to share. Ann Newyar Morrison was pictured and quoted in Madison Magazine's Best of Madison Businesses for 2023. And today we've got Ji Thao joining us to talk about the history of the Hmong community in Dane County. Ji Thao comes to us from the United States in the early 1980s from Thailand. He received an MBA in Information Technology and Project Management from UW Whitewater, and he works for American Family Insurance as an IT project manager. Throughout G's career, he has, G isn't it, we should say Thao, right? Right, I thought so. Throughout Thao's career, he has volunteered with the Wisconsin Hmong Association. And we look forward to your presentation, Thao, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks for speaking with us today. I also want to mention that we'll have Q&A with our speaker at the end as time allows, but please wait for the microphone if you've got a question. So let's welcome Thao to our podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Repeat after me, please. Nya zhong. Nya zhong. That's how we say hi in Hmong. Thank you. So I know there's a few physicians here in the building, and I just want to do a quick pulse check. How many in this room has heard of Hmong or the Hmong community? Excellent. How many in here grew up during the Vietnam War era? Excellent. Real quick, and the mic's not going around, but when you think of Hmong, what do you think about? Courage. Thank you. Allies. Yes. Thank you. Enterprising. Yes. Thank you. Family. Loyalty. That's excellent. Those are some really, really great positive characteristics and or descriptions of the community and of our people. So thank you so much. Before I start, I want to say thank you to President Paul and the Rotarians for allowing me the privilege and opportunity to come share our story. And when I say our, I'm assuming that a lot of the Hmong community can resonate or have parallels to my story. So thank you. And also thank you to Jane. She's been the real MVP throughout this process. She's kept me in line and she's kept everybody else in line. So thank you so much, Jane. We appreciate all you do behind the scenes. So before we get started, I just want to quickly walk through what we're going to talk about today. I want to start talking about how the Hmong people came to the United States in the beginning. Right? How do we get here in the first place? I want to talk about my story, about how I grew up here in the United States and in Wisconsin, specifically Dane County. We're going to talk about some of the important metrics in the Hmong community. I'll brush on the New Year a little bit because that's an important celebration within our community. And then we'll leave it open for Q&A. All right, so who am I? My name is Thao. I was the chairman of the Madison Hmong New Year with the Wisconsin Hmong Association this past year. I came to the United States in 1984. I've been a Dane County resident for over 30 years, and I am currently a technology project manager at American Family Insurance. Any AmFamers in here? Yes, no? Oh. Customers? Yes. That counts. That counts. Thank you. So let's start off. Our journey, our story starts in Laos. That's my grandparents. That's where they started. That's where my parents were born, right? So as a proximity, I wanted to put a map on so that everyone can see how far away Laos is from Wisconsin, right? So we're basically on the other side of the hemisphere. And imagine coming from a climate that is very close to Florida and we have never seen snow in our lives, right? And then coming into Wisconsin, that was quite a transition. But from a proximity perspective, we traveled thousands of miles to get here, right? But how did we get here? What got us here? Okay. So I mentioned earlier the Vietnam War. The Hmong got involved during the Vietnam War. We sided with the Americans to combat the communist military in Laos and in Vietnam that crossed over through the Ho Chi Minh Trail into Laos. So we were allies, as the gentleman up here said, with the United States military. And we were prompted by the CIA. So the CIA agent here, Jerry Daniels, I put a quote up there. I'm not going to read it. But there was an agreement that if we win, there would be some rewards for the community. Hence why General Vang Pao took part in partnering up and being an ally to the United States. But if we lost, there was a notion to take care of us, right? So what does take care of us mean? Because after the war, when the United States exited Laos, exited Vietnam, they left their allies there, which were us, right? So what will the communists think of us as we were allies with the Americans? They were looking to execute. They were looking to say re-educate, but most of them were looking for execution. So what does that mean to the people that were left behind in Laos? We had to find a way out. And our only way out was to cross the Mekong River over to Thailand, where they had refugee camps set up for us. There's a picture of me on the left. I was born in the Ban Vinai refugee camp. That is the largest refugee camp in Thailand. And then on the other side is my father and some of his friends and some of his students. So my father spoke a little bit of English during the time when he was in the refugee camps. And he actually taught some of the English to some of the fellows, kids, children, and some of his peers, right? So we lived there, fortunately, for a very short period of time, so less than a year. And then we were given the opportunity to come to the United States. And because there was a sense of community in these refugee camps, a lot of people did not want to come to the United States because there were fears and rumors that the United States had a lot of things that were tough to adjust to, right? So my father, who understood what the land of the free meant and what the opportunities were at hand, he had to find a way to convince my mom. And so there was this one invention in the United States that made my mom want to come to the United States. Does anybody know what that is? So, one at a time. Sewing machine? Nope. Washing machine? Nope. Close. No, nope. Very close. Diapers. Diapers. And having kids myself, I don't blame her, okay? But imagine in the refugee camps, we did not have access to diapers, right? So then we just had cloths, and every day mom had to go in and clean, and she had to gather water to clean. We didn't have access to a water pipeline either, so just keep that in mind. So the process was cumbersome, right, to say the least. So we got the opportunity to come to the United States, and we came early because my dad had a vision that we needed access to education. Not only him, but myself and my future siblings, right? So our journey to the United States. So we came to the United States in 1984. We landed here in Dallas, Texas. And some of you may think, like, why Dallas, Texas? Well, that's where my dad's older brother was at. That's where he was resettled. So we went after him. And that was our hope, that he was going to kind of help us get resettled and become self-sufficient. Unfortunately, the programs, the social programs down there, were not up to date. And at the time, you got to think about 1984, it was still very, very challenging, right? There were some fundamental misleading information being put out about immigrants at the time. I think that had we had social media on our side at the time, it would have helped us to understand that we were allies with the United States. But we were just looked at as any immigrant. In fact, a lot of people felt like we fought our war, we lost, and now we are trying to find home in the United States, right? So this whole idea, the fundamental idea that we were allies of the United States, kind of it fell through the cracks. Okay? And the reason why sometimes when we relate to the Vietnam War as a secret war was because there was a lot of news and media saying that our military was never in Laos. And that was kind of why it was a hush-hush operation. But that was one of the big reasons why a lot of the information and the fundamental truth that we were allies with the United States did not really spill out to the mainstream media. So as immigrants or refugees, we were just looked on as any immigrant. Like, we had issues in our country, and we're just trying to make pass and make it to the United States to potentially take advantage of some of the programs, right, and do some of that stuff. So there was this whole notion that we were in here taking advantage of the social programs, potentially raising people's taxes, living off the system. And that notion really was kind of how my parents were growing up and living in the United States at the time, right? But luckily for us, we had family that got resettled here in Wisconsin, particularly Madison. And when my dad made contact with some of our family members, and these are like our uncles and aunts and cousins, they mentioned that Wisconsin has better social programs. They will get you resettled. They will help you find employment. They'll help you find housing. And we actually got jobs now, and we're learning English and those types of things. So within 2 years, we made the transition from Texas up to Wisconsin and in Madison. So again, even after the resettlement in Wisconsin, my parents still had a lot of barriers that they couldn't overcome immediately. Number one, language. It was still very, very challenging for them to speak and write the language. My mom she was busy having kids, right? So she didn't work. My father was the only one that was able to find employment. And he was just working blue-collar production jobs or anything that was thrown at him that he was able to take because he didn't have the English literacy that would put him in a place where, or he didn't have the Rotarian literacy requirement, right? And so that was challenging for him. So he was working minimum wage jobs for over decades, right? So growing up, we grew up, anybody know where Northport Drive is? Northport Apartments? Yeah, we spent a good 16 years there. Family of 12 in a 3-bedroom apartment, right? So that's how we grew up. A lot of our family members, uncles, aunts, as they were getting resettled, they also came to Madison. And we started to see this trend of people just following in the traces of their relatives and family members and cousins and things like that. So Dane County became kind of a hub for some of these families, including ourselves, right? And so we grew up there, and it was really, really tough because despite me getting an early exposure to English, my parents spoke very little at home. So my opportunities to practice at home was very limited, right? I had a few friends in the neighborhood that we would go out and play tag and whatnot across the neighborhood, and we would learn, practice English because we all spoke different. We had different ethnicities. So I had some Lao friends, some Cambodian friends from Southeast Asia. So we didn't have a native language that we could relate to. So English was kind of our central point. So that's where I really practiced my English. You'll hear someone tell me sometimes that, hey, I can't believe that you're a refugee because of the way you speak English. And it's for many, many years of practicing, right? So we went through that. My parents, again, we struggled financially. We struggled just from an educational perspective. It was really, really challenging because they never understood the navigation of education. They didn't know how to support us. They did not know that, hey, I have to keep up with your homework as much as you're keeping it up with yourself. So they always had full faith that whatever the teacher tells you, you're good to go. And whatever the teacher says is right, so just do what the teacher says and hope and pray that you're going to continue, right? That all worked up until high school, right? That all worked until high school, and when we got to the point where the learning really had to be ingrained, it was challenging. And we'll talk a little bit about education here shortly, but that's one of the key things was our parents never got exposed or experienced education here in the United States. And for them to support their children, it was really, really challenging. On top of that, a lot of the materials, a lot of the information that was being sent home was in English primarily. So even the transcription of what was being sent home, they really didn't understand how to read. So I always joke around with some of my colleagues, you know, at the early ripe age of 8, I was transcribing letters and pamphlets and forms and stuff for my parents. So those are the types of experience that we experienced growing up in our generation, right? So I want to transition over to my children's generation now. We're potentially, we could say it's a second generation, and we can call it whatever, but I'm going to call it my children's generation. And now they have, most of them, not all, but they have parents who have gone through the struggles of education. They have parents who have gone past the blue-collar jobs, and now we do hold some designation of a job that would be more considered white-collar, right? And we're able to support them in ways that our parents were not able to. However, with the good always comes the bad. So with that, they're losing our native language, right? We don't speak the native language at home anymore. English is the primary language at home. They lose the cultural practices because that is slowly dwindling away, right? And so that's kind of the dichotomy of the different generations that we grew up with. Now, finding that balance is where things get really, really tricky, right? And that's something that my wife and I, and I'm sure everyone else of my peers, are still struggling with today. But I think that, you know, with the right support and with the right vision, there's definitely a bright future ahead for our community, not only our language, but also the preservation of our culture, right? Now, with that, I'm going to transition to Dane County's population, for the Hmong population. If you look at the chart over the last, I'm going to say, 4 decades, there's been immense growth, right? I want to highlight the 2020 numbers, but we're just we're just literally a hairline away from 6,000 residents in Dane County here. Starting from the infancy numbers of 550. I remember the 550 days. I remember when you called the whole city to come to feast at your house because the community was so small. Now we're packing up the Alliant Energy Center, right, for celebrations in our New Year celebrations, right? But something to think about is the growth in our population here, specifically in Dane County. The UW-Madison here is a hub for education. We're drawing a lot of students from other cities within Wisconsin and outside of the state here. Jobs, companies, other families and friends. So Madison or Dane County has become a very popular spot, not only for students, but for families, young families, to come in and settle due to access to education, access to job opportunities, and then for it to be kind of the metropolis of Wisconsin, to say the least. And no disrespect to any of the other cities, but I really hold Madison as my city, right? So that's some of the highlights of why the growth in the population has exploded over the last 4 decades. Now, 6,000 might not seem like a lot, but in our community, and if we look at it from an isolation perspective, it's huge. Okay. One alarming stat about age. The median age in the Hmong community is 20. You look at the general population, that's closer to 40. So we're half the age of the general population. Okay, that's alarming. So what does that mean? What does that mean for people like me? Or what does that mean for folks like our parents? It means that we have to really cater our programming and all of our assistance to a younger crowd, right? We're dealing with new issues that we've never dealt with, or we don't even know that existed. Mental health, we didn't know what that was in our community. That's new. Social media, cyberbullying, those are all new topics right now, but it is impacting our youth today. My parents and grandparents, they don't know how to deal with that, right? So we're almost the bridge generation to understand that. We got to start taking the data in and saying, look, our programming has to fit the script. And the script is that we are much younger than the general population. So we have to act appropriately. You ever heard the term act your age? Well, we got to start acting our age as a community, right? Family size. We're more than double the general population's family size. Why is that? Well, back in the homeland, back in Laos, our families, majority of them were farmers. And in farming, as some of you all know, it takes a lot of labor, manual labor. And it's hard to hire labor back then because most families were poor. So what did you do? You created labor, right? You created labor. So I come from a family of 12 kids, just for the record. And the idea was, if I have a lot of kids, they'll help me in my harvest. They will help me restore all this stuff, and we'll be able to keep up with our farm, right? But obviously, the values have changed since we made the transition to the United States, right? There are still farmers. There's a lot of people that are still farming. So if you ever go out on the farmers market on the square, there's still a lot of family farmers, Hmong family farmers, right? And the notion, the idea of family is still very, very deeply ingrained in a lot of us, right? So you'll still see a family operation at those farmers markets in those stalls, right? You'll see little kids coming in and collecting money from you, taking money from you and serving you, because the value of the family has not gone away. And I think someone right there brought up family as a very critical point. It is, right? A little backstory. A lot back when we were in the refugee camps, some of the refugees in there did not want to come to the United States because they were going to detach from their family. So that was a decision-making point for them, that there was no chance for them to reconnect with their family and they wouldn't want to come, right? So that's how critical family is to the Hmong community. We talked about the New Year. This year, we had a wonderful Hmong New Year celebration. We had it on the weekend of November 5th and 6th at the Alliant Energy Center. Had record-breaking numbers this year. We had 9,333 participants during our day program and a little bit over 2,500 people during the night program. These are astounding numbers that we never seen before. But again, one of our intentions were focused on the youth. One of our intentions were to say, how do we engage the youth so that they would want to participate with us using a pull strategy instead of a push strategy, right? We know about that. So instead of saying we're going to push all this cultural stuff and all that things to you, we're going to pull you in and engage you in things that you're familiar with. But we know the youth needs us to take part and participate in our culture, participate in our celebration, because the Hmong New Year is our only holiday for the year. So there's a reason why it's celebrated so well. There's a reason why it's so highly regarded within our community. You see the costumes, you see people wear their clothes, you see the food, you see the celebration, you see the people coming together. So I just wanted to highlight that. Number one, because I was the chairman of the New Year this year, so I want to highlight that. But on top of that, I also wanted to highlight the transition because of our age in the community. So what are some issues that I really wanted to address, especially with this group? Because I know that there's a lot of opportunities to brainstorm, a lot of great minds in here, right? Access to technology. Our parents grew up with a illiteracy to English. And when that transitioned to the digital world, they also have a technology illiteracy, right? So what does that mean to us? Well, our leaders currently right now, they have very little access to technology. So they can't reach the youth. It's hard. The youth has a set of expectations that we should be up to par with them as far as technology. We can't meet them midway because we, number one, don't have the access to it. Number two, we don't know how to leverage it, right? So we're having a hard time connecting with our youth, and then we're also having a hard time to get our elders, and when I say elders, I'm talking about 50-year-olds and plus, in to understand the digital world of how everything is working now, right? We also have a huge health problem within our community, right? So the Hmong community is 2 times more likely to get stomach cancer than the general population. Hmong females are 2.5 times more likely to get cervical cancer than the general population, right? We have a much higher rate of diabetes than any other population, okay? So those are some concerns within our community. We talk about access to education. Well, when you look at the Asian population as a whole, we're right up to par with the average. We're right up to par with the median. However, when you isolate that data, you start seeing that the Hmong population is really lagging in education, right? Only 61% of our population has a high school diploma. And then when you take that up a notch, only 14% has a bachelor's degree, right? So those are some very alarming numbers that why I say the access to education is still very, very important. The support for education is still very, very important. That's why my wife and I, we made a commitment to ourselves that we will not let our generation be we will not let my children be another first generation student in higher education, right? So those are the types of things that are going on, right? So from an education perspective, we still haven't experienced the education system, so it's still very challenging for us to understand how to support our children. And last but not least, one of the issues is language and cultural preservation. So we have a lot of things working against us here. Number one, the age is still very young in our community, as I said earlier. Number two, a lot of our educators in the language and culture perspective, they're not natural teachers. They're not going to go out and push the knowledge and push the cultural experience in education. So we don't have a medium to, what I say, pull. And we have to find a mechanism to pull the youth in to want to have interest in the language, to want to have interest in the cultural preservation, right? And that's something that we're still working on. That's something that we have to address as a community. We have to address with the resources around us to help us pull the youth. With that being said, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors in 2022. They made a lot of our New Year's and a lot of our activities, such as the Hmong language class, possible. So how do we continue this conversation? I reached out to Jane beforehand, and I wanted to let her know that I wanted to get a feel for the group here to see what are the areas of interest, because I can flood you all with information, but I want to flood you all with the right information, right? So I want to understand what your interests are so that I can provide sources such as videos, literature, so that the group can go through it. But you can also volunteer at events. The Hmong New Year happens annually. So we can share that information with this group. You can volunteer. I always say experiencing it is different from listening and seeing it, right? Seeing it on the media or watching it on the news is not the same as experiencing it, right? This is the first year where we really just invited all of the news media into the New Year this year. And we got some exposure, and I'll share some of those articles with the group. But nothing beats the experience, right? If you've never been to the Badger game, you'll never know what it means to go to a Badger game. You've never been to a Packer game, you'll never understand what Lambeau Field's all about. The same thing is true with the Hmong New Year. Until you've experienced it, stepped foot in, experienced it, immersed in it, it's not the same. So before Q&A, I want to close out with this. What we as a community accomplished in the last 4 decades is way more than what our community has accomplished in the last 200 years. I look forward to the partnerships. I look forward to new ideas. And I look forward to just thought partners in this endeavor, because preserving our language, our culture, and then sustaining the youth is also something that I have really, really deep pride and I take high value in. So thank you so much, and I'm going to leave it open for Q&A now.
Oh, yeah, I will. Thank you very much. I'm Nancy Young, and I want to let you know that this has been a wonderful way for us to understand your community. It's been very clear, and I've learned so much from what you had to say. I'm interested in and going forward with some of the ways that we might be involved, if there's a way for you to communicate that to us other than just inviting us verbally, if there's some way to do it.
Absolutely. I think that I will continue to work with Jane. Jane, sorry, but you're going to be stuck with me for a period of time here. So yes, communication, I think that Jane's going to be my primary channel of communication, but I will be more than happy to continue any future conversations with this team. I think that this group here, we have a solid group here, and I'm, like I said, it's a privilege for me to be here, and I will be more than happy to continue sharing.
My name is Ron Luskin. Thank you for being here today. I was curious, do you still have connections with your extended family back in Thailand or Laos? And what might be the conditions of those persons who are in your extended family?
Yes. So during the conclusion of the Vietnam War, you had three paths. You either stayed and fought, and that means that you went back up to the jungle. You became re-educated, and you became part of the Lao resident, or you fled to Thailand in hopes that you'll make it here in the United States. We still have friends and family out in Laos. Some of them are doing well. Some of them have land. Some of them become farmers, and they've kind of immersed into that. We also have folks in Thailand that just resettled there and became citizens of Thailand. So yes. Yes.
I have someone back here.
Oh, okay. Yep. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. And Chua and Samantha did a presentation at American Family, and I had a chance to get a hold of that, and I'll tell you it was fabulous about the whole Hmong community.
Thank you.
My question is, are you familiar with Lakeview Elementary School?
That's where I went to elementary school, and I'm familiar with the principal there, yes.
Yes, okay. So Lakeview Elementary School is one of the DLI schools for Hmong, okay, in our district, but it also, we're working now to make it become like a national demonstration site for the DLI being Hmong. And I just really appreciated when you asked if people can get involved. I would just tell you, if you go over to the school, you meet the principal, you meet the students, all of what you just heard is evident, and that New Year's celebration is just phenomenal. Got a lot of media coverage on it too. So I would invite you to just take the opportunity to go over there. And this is something unique in Madison that could really be a national demonstration site. In the Hmong population,
Thank you.
is it the second largest in the state? Now the third.
We're creeping up there. We're neck to neck with Madison County, which is Wausau, the Wausau area. We're neck to neck with them. But I'm a little biased. I think that we're going to slowly eke past them. So.
There you go. We're hoping, right?
Yeah,
so thanks
absolutely.
a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thao, Dave Johnson, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering if the movie directed by Clint Eastwood brought a positive awareness to your community and Gran Torino.
Yeah, so there's a lot of perspectives in that. If you're nitpicky about the cultural aspect of it, there was this notion of this portrayal of savagery in our community. And for me, it's always like any exposure is good exposure if we turn it the right way. So that's my take on everything, is look at everything on the bright side and the positive side. It brought to light our community, and if people want to know more about the truth, right, they can always dig for the truth and not believe in the Hollywood hoorah. But I think that I took it as a positive. I can't speak for anyone else, but I took it as a positive because it gave us national or international exposure.
Thao, thank you so much for that very moving personal story, and really appreciated all your information about the Hmong people in our community. And I know we're a better and richer place because the Hmong community is among us. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it, and excellent job. So I know there's people, if you have some time, can stick around and ask some more questions too. Thank you. And I hope you'll join us next week when we'll hear from Bishop Donald Hying, who's going to talk about ethical decision-making and the impact on business, professional, and community leaders. And with that, we are adjourned.